Hey guys, Yips here, coming with another video, and this one's going to be about Mythic Kingorath. Now, this boss is fairly simple in terms of mechanics, but it's really important on how you execute your DPS against this boss because execution is everything. This boss, 75% of your damage happens in a small, 30-second span every 2 minutes, and if you're not maximizing that 30-second span and you're not playing properly between those minute-and-a-half intervals, then you're not going to be doing very good damage. So the way that this boss works is every time he hits 100 energy, he's going to spawn 3 adds around the room. Now, these adds have 30 stacks of a damage modifier. Every second, I believe, that passes, that damage modifier decreases by 1. So obviously, you want to get as much damage as you can while those adds are at a high amount of stacks before it deteriorates too much. So what that means, obviously, is we're going to be saving our cooldowns and every sort of little bit of damage that we can for those add phases in order to maximize our DPS. So you'll see here, the boss is about to hit 100 energy after he casts that Ruiner, and then the adds are going to spawn. So you see here, the adds, see how he has a 30 stack there? We're going to be making sure we're going to be doing as much damage throughout this phase during this boss encounter as we can. Now, the encounter will have 4 sets of these add phases. I believe most guilds will be getting 4 set. Towards the end of expansion, we might end up getting 3 add sets due to gear and stuff like that. But right now, I believe every guild will be getting 4 sets of adds. So that means 4 soul harvests, and you want to be maximizing each of them on this boss encounter. So now that you guys kind of understand the way the boss works, every single, part of your damage basically comes during these add phases, let's talk about how you're going to be dealing damage to this boss. So, obviously, you're going to be saving all of your stuff for the adds because of that huge damage modifier. You're going to be saving your reap stacks. You're not going to be using your reap outside of add phases. You're not going to be using a significant amount of soul shards outside of add phases, and you're not going to be using soul harvest outside of add phases. So basically, you're saving all of your damage for the add phases, like I said earlier. So you can see here, we just finished the add phase. I have 3 stacks of reap already built up since then. I am not going to touch those. I'm going to keep those until the next add phase. The next add phase is happening in 60 seconds. You can tell by the cooldown of your soul harvest that it happens every 2 minutes. Since you're using your soul harvest at the start of the add phase, you can kind of keep track of it that way. I am not going to be using my reap until the add phase. I am only going to be casting 1 UA on the boss each and every time that I cast UA, just to maintain contagion and to maintain that 15% damage increase buff. And then outside of that, I'm trying to get as much Drain Soul uptime as I can. Now, this is not so much for the damage that Drain Soul deals, even though Drain Soul does deal a decent portion of damage, especially when spec'd into MG like you are on this boss fight. But another really important reason to get as much Drain Soul uptime as you can during this down phase is to proc Ren Soul. Ren Soul is quite significant on a lot of boss fights. It does give you a lot of soul shards, even though you think it might not. It actually does. So every single time, you have a little bit of down phase during the boss fight, make sure you're maximizing your Drain Soul uptime. So here we are again at another add phase. Now I'm going to talk about how you're going to DPS these adds. So just before the boss casts his apocalyptic protocol or whatever the heck it's called and he becomes immune to damage, you want to be using your last global on the boss as Agony. The reason being is you can see the boss in the top left corner. He's still taking ticking damage from that Agony. And what that means is it's generating you soul shards as much as any other Agony would. So basically by having Agony on 2 targets here, you're effectively increasing your shard gen by 40%. And then obviously now you have to learn how to do damage to the add phases. Don't worry, we still have 2 more add phases to go. We'll talk about how to deal damage to them. So, just maintaining my dots on both the add and the boss at this point, something really important to do. After your add walks out of his cubby, make sure you have dots on the boss when he's about to finish his apocalyptic protocol in order to have those dots ready and rolling, because your dots actually do deal significant damage as an affliction lock. So now that you guys have a good idea of how to play outside of the add phases as well as towards the end, let's talk about how to deal damage when the adds actually do spawn. So what I'm going to be doing every single time the adds spawn is I'm going to refresh my Agony on the boss the tick before they spawn, and then as soon as the adds spawn, I press Agony, Corruption, Siphon Life. I reap my base dots. I reap before I cast Unstable Affliction in order to get those base dots hitting super hard as soon as I put them up. I cast 1 UA, I pressed Soul Harvest, I cast another UA, another one, until I'm out of Soul Shards or the add has 5 UAs on them, and then I cast Drain Soul until I have to refresh my Agony, or my UAs fall off, whichever happens first. So it's really, really simple. You're going to see here in just, 20 seconds how that works, but It's really important that you execute this properly. So you see here, I have 11 stacks of Reap Soul saved up. I press it here because the ads are about to spawn. I refresh my Agony on the boss. I do Agony, Corruption, Siphon Life. I cast 1 UA, 2 UAs, Soul Harvest, continue casting UAs until I've casted 5 of them, and then I drain. And I sit here, and I drain, and I drain, and I drain, until my Agonies are my Agony is about to fall off the ad. I refresh my Agony on the ad, refresh my Agony on the boss, Siphon and Corruption the ad, cast as many UAs as I can again, and then drain. And that's how you're going to be doing damage every single time to the ad, and you want to make sure that you're very consistent with that. It's the highest damage output that you can deal during that damage modifier phase, and since it's the highest damage you can deal during the modifier phase, obviously it's going to be what you want to do. So you see, as the boss comes out of his damage immune phase, I already have my dots rolling on him, I'm ready to get into more UA cycles, and you can see I have some Reap left over. This is often going to happen. You're often going to have Reap stacks left over after each ad phase, simply because you save so many during the 2 minutes beforehand. When you have Reap left over after the ad phase, you want to make sure that you're casting as many UAs as you can in that Reap window before it falls off. And yeah, that's how you pretty much want to play throughout the whole fight. Now, there are some unique situations during this boss fight where you will have, awkward situations where you have a lot of Reap built up, like I do right now. I had a 12 stack built up and the ad phase hasn't happened yet. You can use your Reap then. If you are lucky enough to get a 12 stack between the 2 ad phases, go ahead and use your Reap Souls. It's okay, because you will have Reap available for the ad phase. But if you're not at 12 stacks before the ad phase happens, just save it. There's no reason to use it unless the boss is going to die. Make sure you're saving your Reap each and every time, but there are some wonky situations where you could be RNGing really hard and you do have a lot of Reap stacks available. One really cool tip that I'm going to mention for this last phase, when you're hugging the boss and there's like 60 balls spinning around the room, what you can actually do is, before this phase happens, is you can put your demonic circle inside the ad room. I didn't do this pull, but I do it every other pull. I put my portal inside this room so I do not have to dodge the balls in the last phase. I can simply port to my ad and I don't have to worry about having them up. So here, I'm doing the same thing. I'm getting my 3 dots on this guy. I refreshed my Agony on the boss. I cast as many UAs as I can, making sure I maintain both Agonies and doing as much damage as I can. So hopefully this video gives you guys a good idea of how to play against this boss. Hopefully it lets you know about the playstyle that you should be using every single time you fight against this guy. A lot of parses on this boss will be due to RNG, because if when you're casting your 5 UAs with Soul Harvest, you get a bunch of 2-piece procs. Obviously you're going to have one of the craziest parses because of the damage modifiers and things like that. But overall, this boss, he's pretty simple mechanically wise. Just the main thing you really have to focus on is how you deal damage during those ad phases, okay? So hopefully next time you guys fight against this boss, you can really improve your DPS against him. Hopefully, you picked up some tips and tricks during this guide. I know it was pretty simple because this boss is fairly easy, but, some guilds might not have progressed on him yet, and when you get there, you might want to know how to play against him. So, thanks for watching, guys. This was Mythic Kingorath. I think my next video will be against Mythic Coven. I have a pretty good kill of her that I want to cover because the way you play against her is actually pretty interesting. So, yeah, thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you guys later, and have a good one.